We are delighted to have with us today three distinguished speakers from who are experts on Egypt. Esra Abdel Fattah, welcome. This is your first time at the Wilson Center. Hope to see you more often here. Jason Brandy, who is a colleague of ours at the center, and Steve McInerney, who will be moderating today's meeting. I'll just introduce Steve. You have distributed the bios of the speaker, and we will then start our meeting. We have an overflow in the fourth floor, so we would be taking questions in writing also from the fourth floor. Okay, yes, they will bring it up when we have Q&A. Steve is the executive director of the project on Middle East democracy. He has more than 6 years experience in the Middle East, including graduate studies of Middle Eastern politics, history, and the Arabic language at the American University of Beirut and the American University in Cairo. His writing on Middle Eastern politics and U.S. foreign policy has been published by the Arab Reform Bulletin, the Daily Star, Foreign Policy, the New Republic, and the Washington Post. We have in the past cooperated at co-sponsored joint meeting with a project on Middle East democracy. It's always a privilege to work with you and delighted to have you here. This is a meeting which is part of a series of meetings we have had on Egypt since the January 25th revolution and the transition that we see in Egypt. Tomorrow, we are also hosting a group of Egyptian businessmen who are member of the Egyptian Chamber of Commerce, but that one is an in-house meeting. But next week, hopefully, we will have 3 ministers in the current government in Egypt to come and speak at the center. So you'll get, we'll notify you. And with that, I give the floor to Steve.
Okay. Thank you very much, Hala, and thanks very much to the Wilson Center for hosting this event today and the broader series of events that it has going on about the exciting developments in Egypt the last couple of months. I won't say much about what's going on in Egypt, which in general most of you are familiar with, and you'll be able to hear from Isra in more detail in just a moment. But obviously, it's a historic time and an exciting time for all of us observers of the Middle East and supporters of democratic reform and change in the region, and particularly in Egypt. I think it's fair to say that the Washington policy community seriously underestimated the potential for this kind of change in the region and in Egypt specifically, and I think also underestimated the importance of youth movements and online activism and their potential to bring change to Egypt, as we've seen in the last couple of months. For several years, Western analysts, American analysts have sort of commented abstractly about the growing, burgeoning youth population in the region, but I think sort of underestimated and sort of downplayed concerns that as a result, the status quo in the region was unsustainable, and many here in Washington were dismissive of the potential of these movements to bring real political change. Obviously, in the last couple of months, that is, those downplaying and dismissing of these movements was shown to be mistaken. In January, the last time I saw Isra before she arrived this week, I visited Egypt. I happened to arrive in Cairo the day that President Ben Ali stepped down in Tunisia. So it was obviously an exciting moment in the region. And I arrived in Egypt just for a short visit for 3 days of meetings with political activists and reformers and opposition figures. And everyone in Egypt was energized and excited by what they were seeing in Tunisia. But I felt as though at the time that there was a bit of a generational divide in terms of the reactions to what in Egypt to what was happening in Tunisia. While everyone was excited and you know excited by the possibility of change and sort of possibility of change in the region seemed more palpable after seeing Ben Ali step down, I felt as though a lot of the established human rights figures and opposition figures in Egypt were excited but didn't know exactly what it meant and didn't know exactly how to react or what to do about it. And I visited the offices of the Egyptian Democratic Academy, where Isra, one of the organizations that Isra helps run in Cairo, and kind of one of the leading kind of youth organizations where a lot of the youth activists work. And I visited with a number of other youth activists, and they weren't asking about what they should be doing or how to react, and they weren't just sort of celebrating but not knowing what to do. They were immediately, as I said, I arrived on the day that Ben Ali stepped down, and they were immediately to work, and they were working hard. And I visited their office, and they said, we are going to make this happen here in Egypt. And as far as the revolution that we all saw take place in Egypt that resulted in President Mubarak having to step down, certainly it would not have happened. I think it's safe to say it would not have happened when it did at this moment. If it weren't for the events that preceded it in Tunisia. But certainly it would have also not have happened as it did if it weren't for several years before that of laying the groundwork of hard kind of work and activism that enabled. There's a large community of activists who, at the moment that the Ben Ali had to step down in Tunisia, they were ready to kind of seize this opportunity and to immediately kind of use the networks that they've been building up for several years and kind of use the experience they gained in a variety of efforts to bring change, to mobilize people in Egypt and to immediately mobilize people. And one of Esra's colleagues that I met with on that visit, was excited and was telling me that day, we're going to do this. We're going to make the same thing happen in Egypt that we just saw in Tunisia. And, we know how to we know how to mobilize people. And now that the population has seen, the change that can come from this, they will join us. Like, we've been ready to do this, and we've been organizing. And if we start a movement, it won't just be us. It won't just be the activists. The rest of the population will be ready to join us. And then I came back to the States, and with the rest of you, kind of watched from afar as they did exactly what they told me they were going to do in January. So it's been exciting, past couple of months to watch. But certainly many long steps still lie ahead. And while I think the importance of kind of youth movements and youth activism and online activism has been highlighted by the change we've seen so far, it certainly doesn't end. And the path to democracy is a long, difficult one, and there's still lots of obstacles ahead. And I look forward to hearing Esra's comments on not only the role of youth movements and online activism up until now, but also kind of the role of these movements today and moving forward, and what we might expect in the months ahead. There's no one that we could be happier to have here speak than Isra Abdel Fattah. She's sort of represents probably one of the best possible spokesmen we could have of this kind of younger generation of energetic youth activists in Egypt. She's been involved with quite a few of the different important movements over the last 6 years in Egypt. She was involved with her activism began with the Kafaya movement in 2005. She was involved with the My Vote is My Right campaign. She's been involved with Mohammed al-Baradei's campaign and his the National Association for Change. She was involved in a variety of online efforts last year to monitor the parliamentary elections. She's now the project coordinator of the Egyptian Democratic Academy, which I mentioned, which is an NGO that we partner with in Egypt. And of course, she's most well known as having been the leading organizer via Facebook of a general strike on April 6, 2008, in solidarity with factory workers in Mahal al-Kubra. Many people see that that was sort of the first large-scale protest organized primarily online in Egypt, and many now look back at that as sort of the precursor to the movements that we saw earlier this year. And it also the protest that she organized on April 6th, 2008, also sparked the April 6th youth movement, which is still today an important force on the Egyptian scene, and was a very important force in the revolution that erupted on January 25th. So we're excited to have Isra here. And then after she speaks, we're also excited to have Jason Brownlee, who's a fellow here at the Wilson Center, He's been studying Egyptian politics for the past 15 years and going frequently to Egypt. He's just returned from a visit there. He's an associate professor permanently at the University of Texas in Austin, and he's this year a visiting fellow here at the Wilson Center, where he's working on Egypt, following up on his last book, which was entitled Authoritarianism in an Age of Democratization. And he's now looking closely at the changes happening in Egypt. So we're also happy to have him comment after Israt speaks. With that, I'll turn it over to Israt.
Thank you, Stephen. And I don't find any word to say after this introduction. I feel that he said everything about me, and I cannot find words to say, but I will do my best for that. And thank you all for giving me this opportunity to talk with you today. And I think it now is the third anniversary for me, now 6 April for the third year. In 6 April 2008, at this moment, maybe I was arrested by the policemen. At this moment, I was in the police stations in Egypt because of calling for 6 April general strike in Egypt by using Facebook and social media to organize people or to support or encourage people to participate in this kind of protest or demonstration against the sharp raising in pricing in this moment. The first call for this campaign is coming from Mahalla al-Kubra labor or workers. And we as activists try to support them, try to support people to participate with them in their struggle or in their strike in that day. I created a Facebook group maybe before 6 April 2008, about 10 days. We started in these days to use the tools of social media as we can, because it is the only way, or it was the only way we have in our hands to try to campaigning with people, try to encourage people to participate in activism. And try to send the message to the government that we are against your decision of the rising of prices in this period without any barrel raising in incomes. And I think it was very successful campaign. The people learned for the first time how they can participate in general strike in Egypt. Not only me who was arrested for this campaigning, a lot of youth and young people arrested for a lot of days, maybe months in this period. Also workers from Mahalla al-Kubra were arrested for years. And I think the begin was not in this general strike, but from, as Stephen said, from 2004, from Kifaya, from the start of Kifaya, it was the start for the political movement in the street. There were a lot of events happened from 2004 until 2011, which lead to this revolution. This revolution is not as a sudden event happened in Egypt, but there were a lot of political movement happened from 2004 until now. Like Kifaya in 2004, in 2006 was the Judge movement for independency. In 2008 was the general strike in Egypt. In 2011, El-Baradei and the starting of his campaign. Also, the case of Khaled Said was very important for people. The people participate in this campaign without any political background. They participate for this campaign to try to return back the right of this man, of this young man who was killed and tortured by policemen in this period. And I think this campaign has had a great role to let the ordinary people or the people who have no political ground to participate in the political life and to attend some demonstration and some protests against the interior of minister in this period and against the emergency of law. Maybe the last thing happened which led to this revolution is the parliament election, was the parliament election 2010. It was not election at all. It was like a corruption process to try to have the majority for the NDP in the parliament. And all these events happened from 2004 until 2011, and also the inspiration we had from the Tunisia revolution. It was very important, because when we prepared for this revolution, we didn't prepare for it as a revolution. We just prepare for it as a big demonstration, a day like 6 April Day in 2008. But we used the word revolution because of Tunisia revolution. Maybe, as Stephen said, maybe if the change happened in Tunisia, it will happen in Egypt and maybe in the Arab countries. We should try, we should do our best. And we started maybe our campaign for this revolution about also 2 weeks before the revolution. Uses the media, the social media, as well as the offline campaign. In this period, we try to publish and to distribute a lot of papers, encourage people to participate in this day. We wrote in these small papers our demands for this day, why we should participate in this day, when we can meet in this day. So I think a lot of people think that it was very good opportunity for them to participate against the emergency law and against the military of the Minister of Interior in this period. And maybe I don't expect that the revolution will happen in January in 2011, but I expect it will happen in 2011. I expect it will happen before the election, the presidential election in September. But the Egyptian people surprised me when it happened in January. Also, I didn't expect that Mubarak will step down by 18 days. I managed myself and my people that we will stay in the square for months until Mubarak say he will go or he will step down. But actually it happened in 18 days, and it is great for us that is only 18 days in the square. But I think now we try to have a demonstration in every Friday in the square, because we want to be sure that is all our demands will be achieved, and all the process, the next process of reforms and of transitional period will be achieved as we want, with a democratic process. Our priority now to have a free election. It's very important to feel that we will have a free election in the next parliament election and the presidential election. And maybe after this election, we will think about the new constitution, because in my point of view, the first step should be the new constitution of Egypt. So some of the activists in Egypt vote for no for referendum and about the constitutional amendment, but the majority says this because they think that it will be the easy way to have stability, to have elections, and the constitution should be after the presidential election. But we have only now 5 months for the parliament. We should do our best. We should use this short time in perfect way to have a free election and to have a total representative for all political powers in the next parliament. I hope so, and I hope so that it will be also a free election and the free and the equal opportunity for all the presidential candidates in the next election. Thank you, and I wait for your questions and ready to answer. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Isra. Turn it to Jason.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to say this is a real honor for me, and it's a humbling experience, really, to be on the same panel as Isra Abdel Fattah. And I mean, for those of you who are not familiar with her courage, I recommend, especially if you understand Arabic, I recommend you go to YouTube and watch the segment where she appeared on the program Masr al-Naharda during the revolution as it was unfolding. and spoke out for Egyptians to join in and for the government to recognize that the people should be sovereign and the government should be accountable to the people. It's a very powerful segment. And so I guess there are kind of two. I'm going to speak a little bit about my 1 week trip to Cairo in mid-March, and there's sort of two questions that I have in mind here, and I think that could probably help to frame our discussion. One is just appreciating this accomplishment, appreciating what happened up to and including February 11th, and trying to understand the history of it and why it happened now, and what the experience was of the demonstrators in Tahrir for those 18 days. So that's one question I'd like to understand more about. And then the second is, okay, post-Mubarak, where are things headed? What's the direction of events right now? And how do they look in terms of continuing on to realize the aspirations of the demonstrators in Tahrir? And it's that second question that my trip kind of informed for me. As Stephen mentioned, I've been going to Egypt for quite a while. My last trip before this year was in 2009, so I'd been gone for a bit. And when I came in, it was 2 days before this referendum, which is referred to as a referendum on constitutional amendments that, for the critics of the referendum, would sort of be a patch job on the 1971 Constitution. The basic plank of those who opposed the referendum was that instead of just changing a few articles, there should be some type of committee leading to a complete constitutional rewrite. Okay, so I arrived in Cairo a couple nights before the referendum was to take place, and saw a lot of activists around, especially on the Friday, the day before the referendum, campaigning for no against the referendum. They were very present in Zamalek, the neighborhood I was staying in, and also in Tahrir that Friday. And then the day of the referendum, it was an amazing scene in terms of participation. I've seen elections in Egypt before. I've seen elections in 2000 and 2005, but this was completely different. The polling stations that I visited with a couple of colleagues were completely full. They were packed. There were long lines progressing in an orderly fashion. The process was transparent, and even with all of the polling stations being packed and some people waiting in line for hours, turnout was 18 million. It was 41%, I believe, and which seemed kind of low given how many people were out there. But it turned out there was kind of a bandwidth issue, really, that the number of voters exceeded capacity. So if there had been more polling stations, it's very likely that turnout could have been even higher. So the process was great. Then the outcome was a disappointment for a lot of people that I spoke with who would identify themselves as kind of, I guess, liberals, you'd say. 77% voted yes. So the no group had a kind of tough time reckoning with those results. And as Isra mentioned, the yes vote was driven by a lot of factors, one of which was this desire for stability and sort of kind of moving on and getting back to normal. And that was a sentiment that my colleagues and I heard in the poor neighborhood or lower class neighborhood of Boulaq Dakror, which is in contrast to more affluent neighborhoods where there seemed to be more of a yes sentiment. So just generally, our impression was more kind of working class, lower income neighborhoods tended to be more in favor of yes. I would just also add that given the constitutional declaration that the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces recently issued, where they kind of said, okay, well, here's sort of the rest of the Constitution for now, in addition to the amendments that passed, there's a question looking back on March 19th about what Egyptians were really voting on. I mean, the process was clean, free, and fair, but substantively, if the SCAF, as they're now being called, the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, reserves the right to just issue such declarations of such importance unilaterally, there's a question as to what really the importance of the referendum was, except perhaps a kind of referendum on the SCAF itself. On top of the results, there was also a video that went viral on YouTube of a Salafist preacher in the working class neighborhood of Mbaba. His name's Mohammed Yaqub, I believe. And he very explicitly tied the yes vote to religion and said a vote of yes was a yes for Islam. And he, in a sort of kind of gloating way, was telling the worshipers that this was a triumph for them. They've conquered the ballot box, and those who don't like the direction the country is going in, well, Canada and the United States have visas, and so those people can just leave the country. It's a pretty troubling speech and video for several Egyptians that I spoke with during my trip, because it raised this possibility that, in addition to whatever concerns folks might have about the Muslim Brothers, and concerns in Egypt about the Muslim Brothers tend to be far less than the concerns in Washington that we hear about the Muslim Brothers. In addition to the Muslim Brothers, there would be also these Salafists who were basically politically quiescent under Mubarak, not really part of the opposition, but now could sort of flex their electoral muscle. So this kind of leads me to the main question that I would like to open with for our discussion is, how do you feel that organizing is going right now in terms of reaching out to new groups, reaching out to groups that might have voted yes in the referendum, but that you would hope to have on your side for parliamentary elections and presidential elections, so that the, I guess, what we call sort of the liberal and leftist opposition could do better than 23%. And I'm especially interested in this because, I mean, this is, you're the person to ask about this, because the amazing thing about April 6th, I mean, it's really worth appreciating, is the way in which internet activists with Isra at the helm connected their cause, or not really connected their cause, but rather picked up the cause of workers in Egypt. And so it was really a broad-based coalition that had a common political goal, but brought people together from very different backgrounds, very different walks of life, something that movements in the US and other places could really learn from. So now, the question for the rest of 2011 is, to what extent can sort of the no group, the group that is really hoping for a serious political transformation, bring together these different groups the way that was done in 2008?
Okay. First, I want to say that is sure we have very short time to do that. We have only 5 months to organize ourselves, to establish parties, and to reach people. I know it is a very short time, but we should do that. We should do this time and use this time for our side, and to use this time effectively to reach people in hand, and on the other hand to establish our new party. And it is actually what we do now. We try to establish a new liberal party in Egypt. There are many steps have in this party. I would outside Egypt for 3 weeks, but my colleagues there have many steps to establish a new party, a liberal party called the Free Egyptian, and I think it will be announced maybe through weeks. And in the other hand, the people also in my party and all the activists in Egypt now try to make something like umbrella or coalitions with not only liberal. We try to put liberal and social liberals, like somewhat leftists, in the same umbrella to try to have our own coalition, our own list for the next parliament elections, our own campaign, our own program. I know it is not easy to unify all these people, but in my point of view, it is the only way. If we need to success in the next parliament, if we need to have our representative in this parliament, we need to unify. No party can, not only the new groups, but we need to unify the old groups, the old parties like Al-Ghad, Al-Jabha, and also the new parties like Free Egyptian, and we have another party, Free Egyptians, which is founded by Naguib Sawiris, but it is somewhat different in Arabic. Maybe in English it is the same, but in Arabic, Masri al-Hurr and Masriin al-Ahrar. So it is somewhat different in names. But we have a lot of liberal groups now started to be established in Egypt, and I think they will try maybe in the 1st of May to unify themselves in a big umbrella and try to select our lists for the next parliament and our campaigns. And maybe I can say that the majority of people or activists which I deal with, which I cooperate with, supported somewhat in Al-Baradei for the next presidential elections, and we are working now in his campaign in parallel with our own coalition or our own campaign for the parliament. And we try to use these 5 months by perfect way to success. In other society, in other aspect, I worked in Egyptian Democratic Academy, which is a civil society company, and we would try by this civil society work to reach people. We cannot reach all people only by parties, but we try to reach people by civil society, educate people, train people, try to reach them in the other government, not only in Cairo, make some training of them. The people in this period need to be educated how we can choose, how we can read the other candidates' programs, how we can organize debates between candidates to let them think who will be successful one or who would be benefit for them if he be a parliament member in the parliament. So the civil society inside and the new parties and the activists inside try to organize ourselves and to reach people in order to go to this. I think it is not easy battle, but we should to go it, and we should to. And I think I am optimistic that the thing is it will be. It is not easy, but it will be great if you can think that is no one can expect that the Egyptian people will have this revolution by this way, by this peaceful way, in the Tahrir Square, and all the world talk about the Egyptian people and how this revolution came as peaceful one. I think we can also have a free election and have our own parliament and our own president. Thank you.
Thanks. Before I open up the questions here, I wanted to follow up with one question as well. Since you're here in Washington this week, and I know that you've been having a lot of meetings with administration officials and policymakers while you're in town, I just want to see if you could say a few words about what is wanted from the international community and from the United States. What kind of support, what kind of steps can be taken? While of course this is your movement, it's Egypt's movement and Egypt's struggle for democracy. There are many of us here who hope that the U.S. government and other external actors in the international community may be able to play a supportive and constructive role, sort of on your side in this road toward democracy. Could you talk about what kind of support could be needed, what kind of things you'd like to see from the international community and especially from the U.S. administration?
Okay, maybe I will take first in general. Because I met Secretary Hillary Clinton in Egypt, and when she asked me this question, I don't have any time to stay steps and specific things, but I try to tell her in general, we need to have a balance in your relationship between the government and your relationship between the people, between the civil society. If we always open the dialogue with the government, we should always open the dialogue with people, with civil society. If you give a support for the government, we need also support. We need a support of the meaning of democracy, a support of the meaning of freedom. We need this support. There is no way now, no time now for speech, for statements. We need action plan. We need this action plan happened in the real life in supporting this meaning. And we need somewhat quick decisions, because we wait a lot of time in the days of our revolution to find that the states support the meaning of democracy, the meaning of freedom. Because the first statement from the state was that they support, they are sure that Mubarak will keep the stability of Egypt. And we totally refuse this statement in the first. And they find that after that we support the revolution and we support the right of peoples, but we don't need this support in our victory moment. We need this support in our battle. When we don't know who will win this battle, the people or the president or the leaders. And what is actually I need from the international society is not only with Egypt. Egypt have the revolutions, but I think the whole Arab world will have also the revolution in 2011 and maybe in the next year. Please don't wait. Don't wait until we know that is the revolution will success. If we really actually support the principles of democracy and of freedom as we live in your country, support it in the international way, and don't wait until we take the side of people or the side of leaders. It is the most important thing I want to say in general. But if we can talk in some specific things now, I think in my priority in Egypt now is to have free elections. How we can cooperate with the Egyptian government and state's government to have this free election. I heard that there will be a cooperation between Egyptian government and the Indian government to have electronic way for election. So I think the support of the states for this project, it will be well supported by technical, not only by money, by technical, by exchange experience, by supporting this project. I think it will be well, because our priority now is to have free election. Also, I think there is a different way to support the revolution in Egypt now. We are in need of returning back the real security in Egypt. The security in Egypt need to somewhat rehabilitations for them. How we can we train the security, how we can train them to respect people, to do their own only rule to protect them, to protect the people, and we need first to have security. If we can search about development and improvement in economy, it will not achieved without security. So the security, it will lead to more investment in Egypt, more project improvement in the economic situations. Also, I think the international society, not only the state, can help the Egyptian to return our money back, the money of the corrupted Mubarak family and all the corrupted people. This money is the international banks, and we need to stop their credit and their fund, and we need their support to have this money back. If we have this money back, we can build our own economy. We can build our own dignity by this money. We can establish a real free democracy and the freedom country. This some specific points I want to mention. Maybe I can find something later. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yes.
This is a question to both Asra and also to Jason. I don't to and Steve if you want to. The revolution happened without any outside interference. Okay, it was an indigenous movement by young people like yourself and others. Why at this stage, suddenly, you think that in order to move from this stage to the next stage, which are the elections and both parliamentary and presidential election, you think you would need the support of the international community, and this is puzzling to me, because why can't the same people who did the revolution, why can't you bring enough pressure on the transitional government to make sure that you have free elections? And can you explain this to me? And also, what is the major challenge that you think you'll be facing as activists? This is a question to all three of you who are involved with Egypt. Thanks.
Maybe I can say in this, I answer the question of how we can support the revolution in Egypt, and I don't ask for support. I don't ask for this support. If you want to support, you can do this and this. And I don't ask we need this support for our transitional period. No, I don't. I am believe in that we can do our revolution by ourselves, and we can make our parliament and our presidential election but ourselves. And when the international society support Mubarak and his regime, we success to step down Mubarak. So in the transitional period, we believe in our power. We believe that we can go this transitional period. But I answer a question, if you want to have support, this is the aspect to have support in. But we are sure that we can do these things by ourselves, but by our power, by our belief in people, that we can do that. And our way is the Tahrir Square, and the Tahrir Square is still in Egypt. And we can go if we find that there is anything against people, we can go again. It is very easy, just transportation for it. It is the first question. And the second question, the first challenge is the short time. The more channel in Egypt now, it is the short time. Short time for parliament, short time for presidential election. The people in Egypt stayed for more than 30 years without any political participation. So we need time to educate them how we can participate, how we can choose. But the time is very short, and I think the major challenge for ourselves now is the time. Thank you.
Well, I guess I would say one way to help, and one reason why Egypt could use some help would be that it's facing a pretty serious economic situation right now. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a crisis, but GDP for the year has been estimated to be cut in half, and part of the problem with the police and other public employees is that, especially the police though, was that for years they were basically underpaid and told, get your wages by sort of preying upon the citizenry. And so in order to really make public employee wages livable wages, they would need to really shift around their budget considerably. And at the moment, they're facing a drop in revenue. So the one way the U.S. could really help would be to forgive the debt, forgive Egypt's debt to the U.S., the debt that Mubarak racked up. And because currently debt service payments on an annual basis exceed the economic support funds that the U.S. provides Egypt. So the U.S., if you take the economic support funds and then you subtract the debt payments that Egypt makes each year, the U.S. is getting something on the order of $100 or $150 million a year net. So forgiving the debt would be a way to help. And then the other more, I guess, tricky aspect of helping is doing no harm. I mean, one of the things that Egyptian activists have said for years is you don't have to promote democracy in Egypt. We can take care of that ourselves. But please stop subsidizing authoritarianism. So please, withdraw your participation, withdraw your support from Mubarak and the security state. So the question right now is, how are relations between the U.S. and other governments with the SCAF, with other elements of the security state, and how can those relationships move in a democratic direction, move to really a different kind of modus operandi? And the flip side of that, which, and here I'll transition to a question, is who are the leaders, who are the interlocutors on the civilian side these days? Because there's kind of, it's not really a problem for them, because the White House could work this out if they put their minds to it. But right now, folks in the White House can say, well, if I need to talk to the SCAF, I can get them on the phone in a few hours. If I need to talk to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, they're easily reachable. But if I want to talk to the Tahrir demonstrators, who do I go to? So I'm curious. I mean, I know that during the revolution, the decentralized form of mobilization was a really important strategy. It was important for evading the Ministry of Interior and ensuring that there was also no kind of sole sort of figurehead that could be focused upon by the regime. But now in this current period, do you see the movement continuing to be kind of decentralized without a clear leader, or will there be at least a few leaders, a few kind of official spokespersons?
I think now the time of, if we need leaders, the time of leader is to be in the days of revolutions. If we in the days of revolution, it be in Tahrir Square. But I think it was very helpful for us if we don't have leaders in this period. And I think now we don't need to have leaders. Maybe if the days of revolution, it is some problems for us, but that is, we don't have leaders and we don't have representative for us. But in this point, we cannot have leaders, because in this point we now find the people divided about their background, political backgrounds. Now the Egyptian society now divided in many parties according the political background. So it is very difficult now to find leaders. If you wanted to open national dialogue with the military council or with the prime ministers and with people, we can find one representative from these new groups or new parties, and with the old parties, which they will continue their political participation. I think it is, and also we can find open dialogue between the people who are working now in different presidential campaigns. So we can have some people who represent the all political power in the street. But in my point of view, in this time, we don't need leaders, but we need to be organized, and we need to form our own political parties to encourage people to participate and also to teach them to be educated. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor up for questions. If you could please state your name and affiliation, and please wait for the microphone that is coming around before you ask your question. And please try to keep to questions rather than comments or commentary. Yeah, we'll start right over here.
Thank you. I'm Heba Al-Qudsi from Al Masri Al-Yawm Egyptian newspaper. It's nice to have you here, Isra. My question to you is about how can you evaluate the influence of the Muslim groups, whether it's brother Muslim groups or Salafis and other Jihadis. It seems that they are taking more influence in the Egyptian society, and part of that because they speak about religion to religious people, and their message is more powerful than your liberal message. It seems that what Mubarak have threatened the West about Muslim Brotherhood and the chaos that may happen if he stepped down is happening now with these accidents of violence and influence increasing from the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafis. Thank you. And another question is about, do you think that these people have stolen the youth revolution?
I will answer all questions. I will listen to.
Yeah, we can take a couple of questions together and then.
Ahmed Sabhi Mansour, working here as a fellow and the president of International Quranic Center. I am giving the same question because, you know, as a Salafi trends used to be under Mubarak control and under his secret service, Amn al-Dawla, and they enabled them to control all the mosques, or most of the mosques, even Al-Azhar and so on. So now, after Mubarak gone and Amn al-Dawla gone, they appear now threatening the Egyptian civil state and the Egyptian democracy and even the Egyptian future. My question is, the Quranists, as you know, they were and they still against the Salafi, and because of this, the Quranists were persecuted in favor of Salafi. My question is this a room in Egypt now for the Quranist Muslim scholar to refute and rebut the Salafi trend, or is the atmosphere is still corrupted as it used to be? Thank you.
I'm gonna take one more question in the back, please.
I'm Amgad Riz. I'm from the Egyptian Embassy. Actually, I have two very quick questions. The first one is for both Jason and Isra. How do you interpret the declaration a couple of days ago by the Supreme Military Council with regard to that Egypt will not, another Khomeini will not be allowed in Egypt, and that the authority, the state itself, will not be handed over to a religious power, which is basically what we have in mind when we talk about the Muslim Brotherhood or the Salafis or whatsoever. Concerning Isra, we've talked a number of times before. Well, first of all, welcome back. Why this obsession with unity? I mean, you've been talking about a coalition of liberals and socialists, or like leftists, whatever you will call them. Obviously, you're talking about the secular opposition in Egypt. And the only real way in which the traditional identity-based politics, which is basically the strength of the religious groups, in order to avoid that, is basically to introduce an economic interest-based discourse in Egypt. How can you do that? Do you really have that in mind as an activist? What is the message that you want to convey to the people in the different governorates? Who are the people actually who represent the 77% of the electoral vote in the last referendum? Thank you.
Go ahead.
I hope I can understood your questions well. First, I will talk about the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafis. I will start, maybe I can answer the three questions together. The Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafis, we deal with the Muslim Brotherhood for years, and we know them, and we can deal with them and cooperate sometime with them, and sometimes work against them. And the dangers is not of Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood representative about from 25 to 30% from the people who were in the square. And they also representative the same if we can analyze the results of referendum. The result of referendum was about 77 says yes. The majority of them who has no political background, about the majority of them who says yes for stability, and they are don't Muslim, they are not Muslim Brotherhood, and they have no political background at all, and maybe they are against the Muslim Brotherhood, but they think it is the first way to have stability. And the minority of them, which I had a dialogue with them, lost their confidential for the military, and think it is also the easy way to get rid of them and to let them go back to their places, because we need the president and we need election. And this also are not Muslim Brotherhood or Salafis or have any religious background. So the representative of the Muslim Brotherhood in the square, in the referendum, and it will be in the parliament, is the same, about 30, 35 between this. Maybe less now, because I heard when I hear that there are a lot of struggles between them, and there are a lot of conflict, and a lot of the figures of them, or the elite from them, the leaders are were resigned from Muslim Brotherhood. So I think we can use these struggles in perfect way to have more seats in the next parliament. So I have no afraid from the Muslim Brotherhood to stall or to steal our revolution, as you said. But the danger thing is with Salafis, because I don't deal with them before. I don't know them. They totally disappeared in the period of Mubarak. I don't imagine their powers. But I think they are a card used by the state security, because always the state security uses Salafis in their sec. When the people, the activists in Egypt attacked the state security, they found some paper said that is Al-Adli, or the Minister of Interior, used the Salafis for the church Qudsiyin in Alex. So there is a good relationship between the Salafis and the state security, and they have relation. Maybe the appearance of the state security of the Salafis now, it is it's used by the state security to say that we are not secure country, and we have some violence in the street and to threaten people. But it will not be for long time, I think so. The military also issued a statement against some violence they did in the street, and from this time I don't hear a new violence they did in the street. So I think maybe the military can deal with this issue, and they can stop Salafis from using violence in the street. In the point of Quran, I wanted to make sure that I understood the question right. You mean from your questions that is now the Quran can work in Egypt to stop the Salafis? Yeah, I think we need the Quran now appears in Egypt to try to convince people to separate between the religions and the political life. Try to help us in educate them. We can educate them in the political ways, and you can get the religion thing, and you can cooperate with us. That is, it is so different between the religious and to be religious one, and to use the religious in your campaigns, and to try to convince people to say yes or no regarding to the religion. I think it is very important now to try to educate people and to learn them these issues. According to the economic, our new liberal, as I said, I am here for 3 weeks in Amsterdam and in DC, but my colleagues now in Egypt, they make a lot of steps towards to finish all the paper of our own parties, and I think we have one committee of economic issues, how we can write a new program of economic issues which acceptable by people, or will be acceptable by people. And the people also in my new liberal party try to make a tour to other government outside Egypt to make conference, to meet with people, to try to discuss with them about the new liberal programs, not only in the political field, but in the political, social, educational, healthy field, in all fields in life, to try to take their opinion in consideration when they put their new papers of new liberal party. Thank you.
Yeah, just on the question about the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces and their attitude toward the Muslim Brothers or other Islamic movements, I would say that right now we're watching a redrawing of red lines. It's a two-sided dynamic between the military council and different groups. And so with the Muslim Brothers, there's kind of a dance. Will they field 30%? Will they contest 30% of seats in parliament? Will they contest 50%? You know, that's still undetermined. It seems like both sides, the Muslim Brothers and the military council, are saying they don't anticipate a Muslim Brother candidate in going for the presidency this year. But also this is going on between the military council and non-Islamic movements. When in mid-March they issued the government technically, the government issued a ban on demonstrations that could be disruptive of economic activity, threatening jail time or £500,000 fine for those who broke the law. And the demonstration last Friday was a way of reasserting the kind of opposition movement in the face of that and showing that actually demonstrations will continue. So even there, the red lines are being redrawn. But I guess for me, the big question of 2011 is not whether there will be a Khomeini being elected in the presidential race, but whether there would be another Mubarak elected, whether the military council will themselves field a candidate, an officer, a retired officer, or a surrogate who would be serving their interests in the presidency.
A couple questions in the back here.
Hi, Isra. My name is Nihal Alwain. I work on the MENA region at the World Bank. And I wanted to ask you a few questions that are probably similar to what some of the people here had asked. First off, how do you really analyze the dynamics of the interaction with the SCAF, the military council? We know the army is part of the old guard. So what do you think their kind of real agenda is, and how easy or difficult would it be for them to sort of retract from the scene? Initially, people were saying they only want to be here for 6 months, but they've been issuing decrees back and forth. There were incidents of torture and so on. So how do you see them interacting in the coming phase? And the next thing I want to ask about is outreach, especially to marginalized areas. You were talking about your colleagues reaching out to different governorates. I work a lot on Upper Egypt, Said, and they seem to be quite disengaged throughout up until this moment. And if you start talking about Al-Baradei, for instance, he still seems like a foreigner, an outsider, and someone they wouldn't even consider. And Amr Moussa is still an extremely appealing character. So how do you propose dealing with this? Thank you.
Just there at the table next.
Hi, my name is Zachary Cohen. Sorry, I'm from American University. I have two questions. Anyone can answer it. One, how will the relationship between Egypt and Israel change, if at all, over the next few months with an incoming new government? And my second question is, were there any examples of social media being used against the protesters, with government officials, for lack of a better term, sabotaging these opportunities, saying maybe a demonstration is happening across town, and then when people get there, there's nothing there, or maybe finding the accounts of activists and using that against protesters? So if there were any particular examples of that.
Amin.
My name is Amin Mahmoud. I'm with the Egyptian Association for Change USA. I'm proud of you, Isra, for your work. I would like to say I don't trust military council, and now a lot of video coming out from young officers. They pulling the cover on them. They were sitting next to Mubarak to burn the people in the Tahrir, and that's true. and they didn't do it because of the young officers and some pressure from United States. And that's fact we've been told that also here, and we know it from Egypt, and a lot of video coming out in Facebook and YouTube. Then, as you mentioned, Tahrir Square is there. Then I would like to continue the pressure because we don't want their agenda. They are not the one who can reform Egypt. Egypt is not military. And they are the people who was picked especially by Mubarak. They are corrupt like him. Exactly. That's one thing. Other thing, I'm not afraid of any Islamic group. And as a liberal, we will have a conference here in the United States. We're working on that to have a liberal group, liberal ideas, and to include religion in it, because Egyptian people are religious. You cannot separate them. Muslims and the Christians, they are both believe in religion and they adapt the religion in their life, and we have to concentrate. We don't want anybody to steal Islam or Christianity from us, but we have principles and values from the religion which can apply in our life. Thank you.
So maybe I can start for the comment for you that I am agree with all you said about I am not afraid from the Islamic groups because I know the real power in the street, and I know that the people can difference between the groups, and they can listen from some groups and other not. And also I am worried from the military. Don't use the word of I am not trust the military, because I try to feel that is the things will be go in in their democratic way. We wanted to feel that. And we will still continue our demonstration against anything happened in Egypt, and we try to have to concentrate on our work now, on our campaigns, to try to let these people or let the military go back to their places again, and to have to deal with one civil president. We need to deal now with one civil president to try to find a way of connection between us as activists and between civil power, not military. And I think the way for that is to use the time and to try to have civil authority for Egypt now, and to try to work for free elections and I think if the free election happened in Egypt, the president will come, the president who will be chosen by people. If we have this free election, so let us in this period try to think and to concentrate about the parliament, because also the next parliament, the parliament who will choose the people who make the committee for new constitutions. So it is very important. If we don't trust the military, really don't trust them, so we should work in the steps to have civil power in Egypt or civil society, and this way is to work for the parliament and to work in the campaigning, and still use the demonstration, and we will be on all Fridays in the square, say that this point are achieved from our demands, and we still need this point, and we are refused these things even from Turkish peoples, and ignore some devices from expert people in all fields in Egypt. And if we can find that is the state security and the ex-NDP try to use some cards against the revolution, we will be in the street, we will be in Tahrir Square, we will continue our demonstration until all demands were achieved, and until we have our civil president. And also maybe I can answer some part of your question about the military, and the next I don't remember the next one.
The other question?
Yeah.
There's one about the U.S.-Israel relationship. Sorry, the Egypt-Israel relationship.
Egypt-Israel relationship. Maybe I wanted to be honest. I concentrate now in the internal issues. I don't let my mind go to the external and international relationship between the others groups. I concentrate in building our new Egypt first. If we build our new Egypt, new democratic and free Egypt, so we will try to build a new and justice cooperations and international relation with all the others. And maybe Stephen maybe answer better than me for this question.
And there's one other question also. He asked about the use of social media or technology by the government against the protests. And I think I know you have some things you can say about
I think it happened already. Maybe in the period after the revolution, the state security, when I attacked the state security in Nasr City, I found some paper from my file, my secret file in this building. I found they spying on all my accounts, Facebook, Gmail, Skype, everything, and they write everything they hear, they show. They always uses our social media to spying on them, and I don't mind if they spy on me on the Twitter, on Facebook. I don't mind, because I use it in popular, not as a secret way. So if you want to spy, go spy, and I write everything for every of every people. But the problem is to spy on my Gmail account, because I have some personal life and some professional lives. I have a career besides the activism. So we know that the government uses social media maybe before the revolution against us, and what we try to do now is how we change the communication law now in Egypt to secure ourselves, secure our privacy, to protect our accounts from spying and from shutting down. You know, that is, we have 3 days, maybe 3 or 4 days in the days of revolution, the internet were shutting down and blocking, and the mobile service also. And when I return back to the contract with the company, I don't find any item protect my rights. I cannot use this contract to prosecute this company. There is no thing says that is I have right to prosecute this company if the service is cutting. So what we are thinking now about is to change the communication law, is to have transparency in communication and in internet service, to try to secure ourselves and our activism through the social media. And also I think that is, as we need now to use the social media, the environment in Egypt is somewhat open now. We need to learn how we can use the traditional media as we learn the social media. We need to appear in TV, we need to reach people with media, we need to make our own programs to try to reach people, to tell them what our own thought maybe about liberalism or about policy and the political participation. So in the next period, as we need the social media, we also need the traditional media.
I would just add to that. I mean, I think there were definitely a lot of efforts by the government to use technology against the protesters. Certainly there were lots of roundup and arrests of people who had been active in online social media. There was a period of about 5 days where the cell phone networks were entirely turned off, and then it seemed that as soon as they were turned back on, then the government was using the sort of data and the technology of the cell phone usage to locate where people were and go and find them and round up and arrest key movement leaders. Jason, do you have?
No, I didn't have anything to add to the answers she gave.
Right up front here, we have a few questions. Yeah, just wait for the mic. Just wait just a moment. The mic is coming.
Thank you. Isra, I'm very proud of you and your colleague from Tahrir Square. I am Egyptian American. Ibrahim Hussein is my name. I'm with the Alliance of Egyptian Americans. Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, said something very profound. It is the economy, stupid. In all the talk recently about Egypt, we are talking about the constitutional reform, parties, liberation and freedom. It was always wonderful. But except for your mention about debt relief, and you mentioned some kind of a committee working on economic platform, all these wonderful developments in Egypt, very little to do with the economy. The whole movement started in Mahal al-Kubra for wages, for dignity, bread lines. I mean, there's very little mention recently in the media or any of the movements about the economy, which is the heart of what's happening.
Tim, right behind you.
Timothy Shorter, the Project on Middle East Democracy. So the Constitutional Declaration sort of nominally restored a lot of the judicial oversight committee things that had been lost previously in many of the elections. Unfortunately, there's still been a lot of question of judicial independence, how the judiciary plays into the reforms and how it should play in the revolution in the upcoming elections. What are the short-term critical things that the judiciary needs to do to restore confidence as well as do its best in the transitional period, as well as the long-term issues for planning for the oversight of the elections?
And right here, the yellow.
Hi, Betsy Popkin with the Public International Law and Policy Group. Good to see you again, Ezra.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you don't see a need for a leader to step up from within the youth activists. Does this mean that you are going to put your effort and power behind a current politician? And how are you going to ensure that they uphold the ideals of the youth revolution?
One more question here.
Thank you. My name is Kabadu Balacho. I'm from Ethiopia. My question is for either Jason or Stefan. Stefan, I heard you saying that the U.S. government was surprised by this event and didn't quite know which way to go. Ezra mentioned that probably not getting involved or waiting until the winner is known is the best policy. The U.S. government to support the values and instead of choosing a group that is influential, for instance, somebody who happens to be in power. Do you think this is going to be the new policy of the U.S. government in dealing not only with Egypt, but any other countries in the world, especially with sub-Saharan Africans? Because right now we know there are so many other Mubaraks still in existence, and so many millions of people are living under a similar oppressive situation, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you.
You want us to start first?
Please.
Okay, Isra wants me to start first. Addressing your last question there, I don't think, I don't think that what we've seen in Egypt and Tunisia is going to sort of instantly, immediately mean that sort of the U.S. abandoned its kind of relationships with authoritarian leaders around the rest of the world. But I do think that it changes the calculation. I do think it changes the perspective of the U.S. government. I do think. I would say that the U.S. policy community and the U.S. government policymakers are sometimes not as quick as you might like to react or adapt. There's sort of inertia of the government bureaucracy and the perspective that's been in place for a long time can take some time to change. But I think that the events of the last few months in Egypt and Tunisia and that we're seeing unfold across much of the rest of the Arab world certainly has had an impact and will have a lasting impact. I think it's will not be possible for to view sort of so casually kind of our relationships with authoritarian leaders and count on that the stability of those relationships. I think quite clearly, the world has seen and the U.S. government has seen that a lot of those relationships are not stable to the degree imagined. So I hope, and certainly our organization hopes, to see U.S. government policy move more in the direction of kind of consistent principled support for democratic reform But I don't think we'll see kind of instant overnight change, but I think the recent events will certainly shift policy, at least to some degree, more in that direction. Jason?
Okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure if maybe I observed the policy change that you're describing. This is the idea that the U.S. has sort of wised up and is willing to cut friendly dictators loose before popular opposition overtakes it and removes the decision from them. See, my sense from looking at, well, just as a student of U.S. foreign policy history, I mean, I want to wait a little bit before saying that there has been a change in U.S. policy, because my sense is that the U.S. has still, I mean, basically the same package of interests is there, the same package of priorities when it comes to Egypt, Gaza, power projection to the Persian Gulf, peace with Israel, anti-terrorism. And so I think they probably approached the crisis through that prism and thought about the ways in which they could get an outcome that would help them maintain cooperation in all those areas. And I'm not really sure how pivotal the U.S. was in terms of getting Mubarak to step down. But what I guess what I would hope people could take from it in general from this moment is a sense of getting more comfortable with the alternative, kind of like the way the Reagan administration very belatedly decided it was okay for Marcos to leave the Philippines and recognize that Corazon Aquino and her movement were not going to hand the country over to communists. I mean, I think that sort of learning or that sort of evolution in the conceptual frameworks of people in Washington may be going on.
First, I agree with you about the point of the economic situation. Maybe I am not expert in this point, but there is some different groups in Egypt working in this issue of the economic issues, and some of civil society working in this. Maybe not in the same level about the political issues, but we need to pressure about it, and I will return back to my colleagues and tell them this point. Because of the point of judge, I am very optimistic about the point of judge, because when I follow now the judgment about the cases of corruption in Egypt, I feel that is I cannot believe what happened now in Egypt against these corrupted peoples. And I think in the future, if we end this transitional period with in a democratic way, there will no space for a judge who will not be fair or not justice or use any other emotional or relation against their law or their justice in judgment. You asked about the leaders in the Revolution Day. Yes, we don't have leaders in the Revolution Day, but we have the thing which, in my point of view, is more powerful than leaders. It is the unity, our unity, and our demands. All the people in the square, or all the revoluted people agree that is we will be there until the revolution, until the Mubarak step down. No negotiation until the Mubarak step down. So this demand is the thing is the leader. This demand, the unify of this demand and the unity of people to wait until this demand will achieve. It is the leader which is more powerful than any other person in this period. Thank you.
Thanks. We're just about out of time, so I'm afraid we don't have any time for other questions. And Jason, if you have any last word, any last comments before we adjourn.
Okay, well, two last comments. The first is just another thought on the prior question. I was surprised, and I guess in February, I forget if it was during the revolution or after, to learn just how popular Omar Suleiman is among people on Capitol Hill. I mean, not to mention the security establishment, but people on Capitol Hill describe him as just, he was just indispensable for Gaza and all sorts of things. So that was kind of, as an American, that was kind of a troubling thing to hear from U.S. politicians, that basically the rendition czar of Cairo is someone that they really enjoyed calling upon. But the second thing, to end on a brighter note, is I just want to again add my I guess my awe and admiration to what everyone else has said about your work, Isra, and what has been accomplished this year. It was truly unexpected and amazing and awe-inspiring. And I look forward to following in any way that folks can support you to do that, and especially by raising awareness here in the United States.
And do you have any last word, Isra?
Yes, I want to end that is I want to thank you all for this opportunity to talk with you, and maybe I will finish my words by the comment of one of the leaders. I don't remember its name in this moment, but he said the Egyptian as there is the Egyptians always write the history, and now we always write the history for ourselves and for all the world. Thank you.
Thanks very much to Isra and Jason for speaking, and thanks very much to Hala and the Wilson Center for hosting this, and for Human Rights First, who organized and coordinated Isra's visit to the States this week. Thanks to all of you for coming. Take care.